Who loves orange soda? Kel loves orange soda. Is it true? I do. Ooh.
What's up? It's Chris, the Drone Geek, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Drones. Let's Talk Drones is brought to you by The Droning Company, the #1 online resource for commercial remote pilots. Check them out online at thedroningcompany.com. Remember, it's just $10 a month to sign up with The Droning Company. You get access to all of the news, articles, and resources to make you a better commercial remote pilot, plus that second-to-none job board. You get one job on the job board, you pay for your membership, whether you choose the $10 a month monthly plan or you pay $100 for the year up front. It's honestly, you're going to make your money back very, very quickly. And remember, the Droning Company doesn't take anything off the top. So if you see a job on the job board that's advertised for $300, you are getting $300 for the completion of that job. The Droning Company takes nothing off the top, no commissions. It's all yours. Check them out, thedroningcompany.com, and across all major social media platforms. Today's video is all about the much anticipated DJI Avata. Now, you're not going to learn anything abundantly new on this other than my take on this drone, because let's face it, there have been a lot of pre-release YouTubers that get access to drones like this before they're even available for purchase. You know the ones I'm talking about, the big guys that we all know, love, and trust, like ORIGINALDOBO, Billy Kyle, Potato Jet. They've all already done this and continue to do content on this, and it's really informative. In fact, ORIGINALDOBO is the reason that I actually pulled the trigger on this and purchased this drone. I was sort of on the fence, and that's sort of what landed me in my second reason for being behind schedule with getting a review out on the DJI Avata is I waited 2 days after release to purchase this. That's when I made my decision. And in those 2 days that this was available for purchase, it went on back order. Disproportionate amount of supply and demand, and I paid the price for it for waiting. So I didn't get this until 2 weeks after the original release date. So it's, yeah, this was sort of delayed from the beginning and it was doomed from the start. But I've got it, and I've flown it a handful of times. And I gotta tell you, just to sort of summarize what I'm about to tell you about this drone, I'm really impressed. This is a cool little cinewhoop drone. Now, I don't have a ton of experience with cinewhoop. The only other experience that I have is with the GOPRO Cinelog 35, and that's very limited. In fact, I'm still waiting for some manufacturer's repairs to be done. Mine was borderline defective. Not sure what that means, but either way, I haven't really flown that very much. I got my hands on this, and it's exactly what I wanted it to be. This is a nice, smooth, controlled flight. Everything about the flight experience on this drone is really, really solid. So let's go ahead, let's pull up a whiteboard. I'm gonna go through the list of pros and cons about the DJI Avata, and then we're gonna break down some of those points into finer detail. So, all right, first and foremost, I already mentioned this. This is a big pro for the DJI Avata, is the flight experience. The flight experience on this drone is second to none in my book. Now, again, I don't have a ton of cinewhoop experience flying it, actually, but I do have to say this is everything I expected a cinewhoop to be. It's got a nice, stable, steady flight. If you make sure that the attitude limit is on in manual mode, you get an even more stable flight experience, and it's just very easy to control, especially for beginners in the FPV sector. If you're looking to get started in FPV manual style of flight, look no further than the DJI cinewhoop. The ecosystem is super friendly, as per usual, to people that have been flying DJI GPS drones. It'll be a nice little transition over into the world of FPV. There's no tuning required out of the box. The flight on this is fantastic, so you don't really need to play with the rates too much, although if you've got experience and you feel comfortable doing that, you can do so very easily through the goggles interface. So yeah, would I recommend this to a beginner? Absolutely. Would I recommend this to somebody that's been flying manual for years? Also, yes. This is a great experience and it's got a nice feel to it. I feel very comfortable flying manually, and within about 30 minutes of my first flight, I started flying through obstacles, which is completely unlike me. I look at DJI Tech and I'm just like, oh, man, it's so nice. And I know it's also expensive to get it repaired or to go through the care refresh. It's not as expensive as just buying a new drone outright, but you're still gonna pay money to get this replaced even through the DJI Care Refresh for those of you that don't know how those work. So anytime I'm flying a DJI, I try to be very, very careful with where I'm flying it, how I'm flying it, and how aggressive I am with that flight. In this case though, 30 minutes. I was flying it through trees, I was flying it under obstacles, because it just gives you a sense of control, even in the manual flight mode as a beginner or somebody that's very green like myself. It gives you a sense of security that you just don't get anywhere else. Another pro to this drone is actually the build quality. And this is also going to get a little knock in the con column later, but we'll get to that in just a few minutes. But overall, the build construction of this drone is very sturdy. I mean, when I hold this and I feel, even though it's made with plastic, it feels sturdy and it doesn't feel like it's going to break in most circumstances. Now, if I'm going 45 miles an hour with this and I run into something, yeah, I could see it breaking at that point, definitely. I think most prop guards, most ducts would break at a high-speed impact like that, but I think this is going to be more susceptible to that. But it just feels heavy and sturdy in my hand, and truth be told, I've already had some small crashes with this, mostly revolving around landing in manual mode, that have really put this thing to the test. I mean, I flipped it over in grass on soft ground, which that's not a huge test, but it did take a pretty hard tumble in that particular instance. And the other one that really impressed me is I went to go land this on gravel, and for some reason the landing just didn't take. It hit the ground really hard and then flipped and actually ended up underneath my car. Pulled it out from underneath the car, restarted the whole thing, and it was fine. I was able to fly it. The propellers were a little dinged up, and I still have that. I have some new propellers on the way to replace these, because I think you could still fly with these for a while, but I also don't like to take any unnecessary chances. So I do have new propellers coming, but overall, this thing took the 2 hits that I've seen it take like a champ. I didn't have any complaints in terms of how it recovered there. So build quality, huge up in the pro column. The next thing is battery life. Now, I know I've heard other people complain about this. Typically, those are people that have flown DJI drones that are GPS, like your Mavics, your Phantoms. You're used to getting 30 minutes, 40 minutes of flight time out of those drones. This, you're not going to get that. Because of the nature of the flight and how hard the motors have to work compared to a GPS style drone, the flight time on this is going to be significantly reduced. I don't do a lot of acrobatics with this. In fact, I so far haven't done really anything acrobatic. I've done a couple barrel rolls and a couple power loops, but it doesn't handle them the same way that even the DJI FPV does, which has faced some criticism with how it does in terms of acro style of flight. But what I have done is I've flown this in manual mode up to about 20 miles an hour. That's about as fast as I go. I've pushed it up a little bit more, but not for anything stylistic. When I'm flying for video or when I'm just testing out the camera capabilities and getting some shots for B-roll, I've been flying about 20 miles an hour at a top speed. And even when you're going up to 20 miles an hour, the battery does last quite a while longer than I thought it would. I was expecting this to go maybe 8 minutes, because it was rated at about 20, and I thought, well, it's a manual style drone. The DJI FPV runs out of battery super fast when you're flying that manual, especially when you're doing acro style flight. I thought we'd get about 8, 9, maybe 10 minutes out of this. So far, I've consistently gotten between 12 and 14 or 15 minutes of flight time out of this, which is good. For this type of a drone, really, really good stuff. I was really impressed by the battery life, actually. Now, the next test is going to be, I did order a GoPro mount for the top of this from ORIGINALDOBO. I've gone ahead and linked that down below. If you have an Avata and you want to mount a GoPro to the top of it, whether it's going to be the 11 or you have the 10, the 9, the 8, you get it. I've got this on the way from ORIGINALDOBO. I've put the link down in the description if you're interested as well. I'm going to be interested to see how the GoPro influences the flight time. I think we're going to be down closer to about 8 minutes of flight time when you add the weight of the GoPro Hero 10. It is a little bit heavier. It's got a little bit more heft to it. So I think that it's going to make this drone work significantly harder to carry it. But that sort of brings me to my next point, which is the cons column. There are not a lot of cons with this for me. It's very portable, it's very small, it's very sturdy, it's got great flight time, great flight characteristics, all the things that I was really looking for with this drone, it delivered. Where I was a little disappointed but not surprised was the camera quality. I've heard some people talk about how great this camera is. I've heard about some people talking about how terrible it is. I've heard people talking about everything in between. And I would say if I fell into a camp, it would probably be the people that are on the in-between section. Because, is it better than the DJI FPV camera? Hands down. This is a much, much better camera. It's got better color science behind it. It's got a better bit rate. Everything about this camera screams better than the DJI FPVs. So they have improved from their last style of manual FPV drone. However, it still does not deliver what I need from the onboard camera. When you're in harsh lighting conditions, this camera does not perform. And it's hard for any camera to perform in harsh lighting conditions, but this suffers a lot of the same issues that its predecessor did. The camera on this thing just really blows out the highlights and crushes the shadows. Is it as bad as it was before? No, but it's still crushing shadows and blowing out highlights. And I've got some footage that I'm playing here while I'm talking to sort of show you that. If you're looking in a direction where the lighting's very harsh or very minimal, it's really, really hard to look at the footage and go, yeah, I could use that professionally. Now, that's without any type of a filter on this camera, okay? So if you got an ND filter, which they do make them for the FPV, the Avata, but they're on back order, so I have no way to actually get them. I have a feeling if you applied a filter, it might be a little bit better. You might be able to find some professional application for a lot of the footage, but you really have to be careful with how you frame your shots, with where your light source is, with how harsh that light source is. Everything about flying with this camera, you have to be careful, because just a little bit too much one way or the other is gonna ruin your shot. That's just what I found from flying it. Not super impressed by the camera so far, and that's why I did ultimately order the GoPro mount for the top of this drone, because the Hero 10 just has such sharp, crisp, amazing color, and it's an awesome action camera. The Hero 10, they really did it right with that camera. So I am gonna be mounting a GoPro to this for the foreseeable future until I can test out some ND filters on this thing. And even then, we're gonna have to see how it does. Where I will give the camera a small up, and this doesn't go into the pro column necessarily, but it does definitely deserve mention, is the color in this camera is really good. When you're looking in the direction away from the light source, like the light source is behind the drone, and you're looking at a subject or you're flying around a certain area, the color and how brilliant it is in just the stock color profile, but also when you shoot in D-Cinelike and then grade it up, is fantastic. I mean, it really is a step above the FPV in that regard. The camera is definitely an upgrade. You just have to know how to position the drone and how to get the right shot. If you can do that, you're gonna get a lot of good stuff out of this camera. Chances are though, just based upon the environments you're gonna shoot in, based upon the way that the flight will go, you're not gonna really be able to depend on this camera for professional level work. Social media, sure. Just for fun, sure. I wouldn't give this to a client. Another con does come into the construction of this drone. Now, I will say that even though I said this was sturdy earlier, the plastic body does concern me. I think if you took a hard enough hit, prop guards, DUCTS, whatever you want to call them, would absolutely crack. I think that the camera is very exposed. I mean, it is tucked in there a little bit, but the right kind of hit on the right surface, that thing's gone. It's not gonna be as durable as just a traditional cinewhoop. It won't take the same kind of hits. But really what I want to talk about here is the location of the SD card slot on the drone. You may not be able to see it, but it's actually right around here, and there's just a little door that you open up just like that. And that's where you put your SD card, and that's also where the USB-C port is for when you need to update firmware and things like that. I don't like the position of this. Can you open the door while the propeller's in there? You can, but it's not convenient. It's not easy to get to. It's a constant game of trying to just get your fingers pinched into this tight little area. Now, I didn't think this was going to be as much of a problem for me because with the GEP-RC, the USB ports are similarly located. I mean, everything, all the brains and guts of the drone are in that section of any FPV drone. I mean, they're in the middle on the body, and it's all sort of packed in there because you're trying to get a smaller package so that you can get longer flight times, you don't have as much weight. There's a lot of reasons for that. This is the same, but just the nature of the way the propellers are built, the way the ducts are built, the size of them, where they're positioned, it makes it hard to get to that slot. They could have thought of a better place to put it. I mean, you could have put a slot in the top of it here somewhere, or you could have put a slot along the side here. There's a lot of ways that you could have figured out a way around that, and they just didn't. They put it at the bottom of the drone. I guess maybe when they were designing this, that was like the best place for it. I'm not an engineer that way, so I don't know what they were thinking, what their exact logic was, but all I know is that's a very frustrating place to put the USB-C port and the SD card slot. Every time I want to get footage off of this thing, it's a struggle unless I just resign to the fact that I've got to take the propeller off to get to that slot easily. And let's face it, who likes doing that? My last con is something I don't actually have any experience with, but I've seen it online, and it sort of comes on the tail of that conversation about what happens if you break the ducts or the prop guards. I've seen videos online of people changing these things out because that is possible. DJI does sell the prop guards or the ducts separately from the drone so that you can get replacements and actually replace these yourself. Replacing these is not as easy as it probably should be. That's just my opinion. I know that there are a lot of choices that were probably made. I know the antenna are in these two areas, or they're in these pegs basically that are on the bottom here where the drone sits on. You have to very carefully take the antenna out, keep it connected to the drone, and then reinsert them into the new ductwork or the new prop guards. It's a really arduous process, it seems like. I don't know if that was the way to go, especially if you're trying to market this to beginners, people that are just getting into FPV, manual style flight. There's gonna be a lot of crashes, and it's gonna be sort of difficult for people that just started to figure out how to take a drone apart and then put it back together without causing themselves even more headache and even more problems. Again, I haven't experienced that for myself yet. I may change that opinion when I have to do it myself, if I ever have to do it for myself. But for right now, just based upon the videos that I've seen of that process, that's my last con for this drone. Overall, if I had to rate this out of a 10, 10 being absolutely perfect drone, 1 being terrible, I'd give this an 8. I would give this drone an 8, and I'd sleep well at night knowing that I gave it an 8. This is a great drone. If you're looking to get into cinewhoop style flights, this is it. This is your solution. This is gonna do what you need it to do, and you're gonna have a ton of fun flying it. I can say the past 2 days, 3 days that I've been flying it, I've had a blast with it. If you liked this video, hit the thumbs up icon down below. If you really liked this video and you love drone content, content about drones, content by drones, content for drones, this is the channel to subscribe to. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. This is your second reminder, hit that subscribe button. Let me know what you think down below as well. Have you bought the DJI Avata? Do you agree with my analysis of it so far? And if you haven't bought the DJI Avata, has this review or any other review convinced you that you're going to, or maybe that you're not? Again, let me know down in the comments below. Hit that bell icon for notifications every time I post. Until next time, I'm Chris, the Drone Geek, and I am out of here.